Welcome to Wire Guild. The tutorial, or two tutorials actually, we're going to be doing is for hair forks or scarf pins. They can be used for either. They can either slot into your hair and be worn in your hair, or pop them through a scarf. Now the materials for the first one, that was the picture that you just saw, you're going to need sort of 3 cabochons. I've used 10 by 14mm amber cabochons, and about 10 inches of 2mm or 14 gauge round wire, and about 6 foot or 2 meters of 0.8mm or 20 gauge round wire. Now if you don't have any 2mm or the 14 gauge, you can probably get away with the 1.6 or the 16 gauge that we've been using, but the prongs won't be quite as strong, so you have to be careful. So this was one of the prototypes I did when I was thinking about doing something for slipping into hair and having to go with that. And as you can see, it's got the 3 labradorite cabochons on, and the tutorial that we're doing is something very similar to that one. I'm also going to show you one that's much more freeform. That one's quite, sort of regular. You've just got these little 3 cabochons on it, whereas the other one is more wild. So we're going to do the cabochon one first. Now you can use whatever size cabochons you've got. You'll just need to alter the amounts of wire ever so slightly so that you can add some in or take some out. So this is a 2mm or 14 gauge round wire, and as you can see, it really is quite firm. Now it does need to be, really, because if it's going to pop into your hair or pop through a scarf as a pin, it needs some body there behind it to make sure that it's sturdy. And I'm going to use about 10 inches. Now as you will see later on in the tutorial, that does make quite shortish spikes on the end of the pin, but they do still work fine. But if you wanted them longer, you'd add an extra couple of inch on at this point. So I've got my 10 inches of wire, and I'm going to grip that in the middle with round nose pliers. These are wubbers, and you kind of need something fairly substantial with this wire because it is quite stiff. And I just put a loop in the middle. Now if I just flip this one over again, you can see it's got 3 loops set up so that they hold the cabochons on top. So I'm going to put another loop in and twist that around and down like so. You'll find yourself doing quite a bit of tweaking, getting hold of wires and just bending them and straightening them up. So I'm going to do the other side. Now do remember, this is the back of the piece, so it's not absolutely, you don't have to get it dead on perfect. That's not. So I'm just going to open that up a little bit and make it a bit bigger. That's it. That's better. Still not quite even, so I'll just give it a tweak. And we want these 2 wires that are coming down to sit parallel to one another. Come here. There we go. I need to straighten that bit up a bit. As I say, you'll do quite a bit of this, just move it, because it is such thick wire. So I've got 3 little loops in the end. Now if I was using a cabochon that size, you can see that it wouldn't really be big enough. It would need to be bigger to take those, so you'd need more wire and you'd use larger loops. But I intend to use smaller cabochons than that. Let me just get that one out of the way. Let's see, what have we got here? Sorry, I'm just rooting around trying to find the cabochons now. I did have them out exactly where I'd need them, but of course I've put them away onto one side. There we go. These are tiger's eye, and I'm not sure that I'm going to like these on, but let me just have a quick look. You can sort of balance them on the top and get an idea of what your piece is going to look like. I want something that's very autumnal, so the sort of the good warm goldeny tones. Let's have a look. You know what, they do not want to sit on there and balance, do they? That's better. Nope, slip through again. Nah, I don't think they're right anyway. Let's just slip those off. These away and find my amber ones. I had some malachite ones somewhere, and I will be making some in malachite, and they will look gorgeous. Well, those. The copper with the green always looks really nice. So there we go, some amber. Let's have a look, see if that looks better. Oh yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, we'll have 3 of those. Right, I'll put these back in the bag, otherwise I'll lose them. There we go, just get those out of the way. And we'll need another one of those. I don't need the rest. So the main thing is you've got this beautiful sort of triple shape. 3s always look better than single stones or something like that. Now what I need to do is make it, it's not quite straight. Let's even that up first off. So just cut through there so that's even. And then I'm just going to play with that a bit. That loop on the right hand side is a little further away than the other one, and although I said it's at the back and it doesn't really make a lot of difference, I would like it if it was a bit nearer. There we go, that's better. Now then, so my amber beads need to sit on each one of these loops, which is creating the framework at the back of our pin. So each one's going to go on, each single one. Obviously if you wanted this to be much larger, say you wanted 5 of them to go on there, you would just use more wire, then put more loops in and create more. So I want to get some, this is 0.8 or 20 gauge round wire. Again, I've got copper, it's dead soft, it's the bare copper that I'm using. And I'm going to put 2 of the pieces together. They're approximately 12 inches long, are these, and it really is an approximate, it's just some lengths I've cut off. So making sure the wires are together, put your cabochon over the top, and then you're going to take 2 of the wires and wrap them around the top of the cabochon. And when they're this little, sort of a 14 by 10, they are really, really slippery. So you've got to sort of hang on to it and wrap it round. You'll probably find it a lot easier than I am doing, because you won't have your arms extended underneath the camera. So I'm just get that top bit now. Those of you who have made the paradigm bangle will recognise this as very similar to that, but I've just made like a Z, and I'm going to pop 2 of the wires through the middle of the framework so that it sits down and in, and then when I wrap around, back around the stone again and to the back, what it's doing is it's not only holding the stone in place, but it's also holding it to the framework. So let's see how I can wrap the other side on. If I hold it with my thumb and wrap back around there, that's going back over the framework. Just wriggle it straight. Okay, now there's no rights and wrongs. Basically you're wrapping this wire around in whatever way you see fit to make sure that the stone stayed in, because it's guaranteed on one of these 3 that the stone's going to pop out. Let's just push that further down, and when it does I'll show you how to pop it back in. And have another curl at the side and wrap that going upwards, go back around the back of it, and then down and through that, so I'm tying quite tightly around that gap in between the two loops, you know, that sort of stronger bit of wire. And then where can this one go? I'm a little worried about that moving. Let's see. If I take that one up and over the top, it will hold that top wire in place, and I can take this one down and wrap it around that strong wire on the other side. There we go. So that's really quite firm now. So let's just make sure these wires are out of the way. I'm not going to get rid of them yet. I'm going to do the same thing now with the next bead. So wires across the flat back, and then wrap around the top, yeah, and then around. See, slipping out already. I said they were slippery. Around that side and around the back. Yep, got it. Now we'll do the same thing again. So pop two of the wires, move that down a bit further, and slide it through one of the holes like that. Whoops. And then sort of push it over the top to hold it in place. And then start binding the wires so they go around the framework, around the bead, back around to the stop slipping. Put my thumb on top of it, that'll hold it still. Go around. Now then, let's see what I can do with the other end. Yeah, take that back round. Have a look, see if I can take that around and over the top of that loop to hold it in place. Every one of these will be different that you make. And this is partly why, because all you're doing is going around with the wires until you've got to the point where that cabochon is absolutely, you know, fixed and it's firm. And once you've got to that point, you can sort of move on to the next one. Obviously, the more cabochons you put on, the fiddlier it is to do, because you end up with more lengths of wire. I'm putting a curl down the side. I like curls down the side because they add more depth, if you like, to the area that they're stopping moving. Right, let's just take these through that loop again. Instead of going through in the middle, can you see how I've gone through there, through that circle? That's it. I'm just going to pass that through and I'll pull it out with the pliers. There we go. Put my thumb over the top because you don't want to pull too tight, because if I pull beyond where it's there, what I can do is I can pull too tight and that loop that we put in at the side will just straighten out. So you don't want that to happen. So just enough to get it there. And then when I come there, it's absolutely holding that firm. Keep giving it a little tweak to make sure that it's in place. Move that wire out of the way and that wire. So all four pairs of wires now are moving. This one's really kind of short, but we'll just move it out of the way for now. And we'll do the other one. So this is my third. You see this one's a little bit darker than the others, but with amber it doesn't matter, it's sort of part of it that you get ones that are slightly different coloured. They don't have to be perfectly matched or anything like that. So I've got some more of the 20 gauge or the 0.8 mil, and I'm going to do the same thing again. So across the back, round the top of the bead, There we go. And back in you go. Go on, slippery. And round that side. Just pull that wire down a little bit more. That's better. Okay, let's pop this one in. I'm amazed one of them hasn't popped out yet. Doing well today. So just slide that through, and the wires go underneath that frame wire. Whoops, come here. Well, I do when I'm not dropping it. It doesn't want to go in because I've tucked it so tight to the back, so if I just lift it slightly, that's it, it just tucks. Now the other wires are getting in the way, so move those underneath. There we go. Then I can hold the whole thing in place with my thumb, wrap it around, so it's stopping the top of the amber coming out. Now where did those other two wires go? There you are. Let's go around that stem. See, we're already there. Oops! I said it had come out, didn't I? Right, pop that back in. If it fell out, it will go back. It's just a case of being very gentle with it and finding which way it just poinged out there. There we go, just pop it back in. So there's my weak spot. That's the area it came out, so wires straight across there to stop that area. So I'm going to pull those wires down so it's got more coverage, and then when I bring this around, put my thumb against it, came out again, lip it back in. This is one of those where sometimes you have to put it down, go and have a cup of coffee and come back to it later, because you got quite fractious with it and throw it across the room. So I'm going to put my finger against it, and I'm going to put a curl where its weak spot is, if you like, where it keeps boinging out. And I'm going to wrap that around the back across. Right, we're getting firmer now. Can't believe it. Hang on a minute, let me get my hands. Push on there, that's better. I changed all my camera rig up because I kept moving the shots too close to me, so I moved the camera much closer, and now I'm going out the top. Honestly, shoot me. Right, let's just wiggle that back into place. So as you can see, there's no absolute definite, yes, this goes here and this goes there, and these wires do this and these wires do that. They don't. All that happens is you go wherever you need to go to get the wires to hold the little cabochons in place, and you keep wriggling them and turning them and adding bits over and curling wires around until you've got them secure. There we. It might not. The reason I left it in when it spins out like that is because it happens to everybody. A lot of people who do tutorials will have you think that when they do it, it works perfectly every time. It doesn't. It doesn't work perfectly every time for everybody. There are occasions where it just does not want to behave, which is why, for you to see, you know, you saw it coming out. Now that's a little loose down there, so I'm just going to take the pliers and I'm just going to tighten those wires like that, so they're tight against there. Now, how secure are you? Yeah, okay. Now then, I have now several sets of wire that really don't go anywhere or do anything. Let me just curl that one around, all the way around. As you can see, I'm building up that bottom area where the weak spot was, so I'll put another curl in there. I put two of the wires together and I'm twisting one around the other. Sorry, I know my hands are in the way. That will give a nice little sort of swirl effect. Now you see this one is really short now, and we can't really do much more with it. So I'm going to take those wires around the back, just trim them a little shorter, and I'm going to wrap them around the framework wires. This is going to be a pin that goes in your hair, or it's going to be a pin that goes through knitting. Whether it's your hair or whether it's your knitting, you definitely don't want anything to catch. You know the little spirals we make with the coiling gizmo? Don't be tempted to use those. Oh look, that one's moved. Right, wobbly. Okay, we'll come back to the coiling gizmo in a minute. Let me just get this. So obviously we need something to hold the stone down and then go around the back. That will do it. So wrapping around and back. There we go. Pretty firm now. Let's just take these round and put them through there. Right, sorry, coiling gizmo. Yeah, don't be tempted to use the coils. They pull your hair out like I don't know what. Look great, but terrible, really painful. So try and make sure that all your ends are tucked in, smoothed down, hidden away. Where shall I put this one? Let's thread it up through the middle there. That's it. Yeah. Okay, another one. What shall I do with that? Just curve it around. We're sort of filling in this central area in between the cabochons with swirls and curls, and once we've got them filled in, so that wire was at the back and I need it to be at the front, so I brought it down between two of the cabochons. That one's also at the back. I'll see to that one in a minute. So let's put another curl. This is all going in the middle where the three meet, because at the moment you've sort of got a bare bit, so I'm filling it with scrolls and curls and twists. Just go all the way around with you. Yeah. And then back over and between this one here. I could fasten it there, but I'd rather fasten it against the big strong wires because it will have more strength. So if you can't get both wires through together, take one at a time. Take those through and wrap around nice and tight. Both wires. Through you go. And then trim off your excess and make sure you smooth that right down so that there are no sticky up bits or sharp bits to catch on anything. Personally, I'm not a knitter, but my mum knits, and if I was to put a piece of jewellery in something that clipped all the stitches up, I think she'd hang me from the nearest beam. So no end bits, no sticky bits. So really all I'm doing now with the last bits is just tucking them through and around where I can get a gap, where I can bring the wires through. And as I said, it's going to be different every time you do it. You're not going to get two of these alike. Or it'd be quite amazing if you do get two of these alike. I never do get two of these alike. I always get them different. But that's nice because it means when you put them out for sale, people have got more choice because they're not looking at things that all look alike. And it's a great way to wear them. Not everybody has lots and lots of hair, and therefore they may like the look of them, but they don't have enough hair to actually to wear them in. So offering the alternative of wearing them as a scarf pin is a really good idea. I'm just turning those ends in, and then when I flatten them down, the ends will tuck in and around that stronger wire just there. That's it. Just make sure it's in and tuck it down. Right, that one popped out. Let's put it back in. In you go. When you're dealing with a slippy cabochon, the more wires you move, especially when you're finishing off at the end and tightening up, there is the possibility you could lose something. So that's my weak point. It needs to come over. So let me just get my finger in. It's not going to work. Round those pliers. Go in. Can you see how I'm gripping at the other end of the stone? And I'm bringing those down. So I'm going in the wires at the bottom and the wires at the top. And I'm bringing it down over the amber. Just twist. That's it. Can you see how I'm bringing it down? That's lovely. Now I haven't marked anything. All I've done is I've made it muscular. So I can go back to tucking my ends in now. There we go. Wrap those around. These end bits are often neglected. You've done the main part of the jewellery. You're so desperate to see what it's going to look like finished that you'll rush the bits that are the finishing off. The amount of people when I'm selling that the first thing they do is they come to the table, they pick up a piece of jewellery and they look at the back is unbelievable. They you know, they do. It's the first thing they do. So don't neglect all these little end bits. Make sure that they're trimmed off short and they're tucked in. It may not be quite as important as the front of the piece, but you know, it's fairly important. So that was nice and in. I've got this longish wire. What shall I do with it? Take it over that one. Should we have a curl down here? No, let's just wrap it round there. And then I can have a curl in the middle again. When you're working with bright copper like this, when you're putting a lot of curls one on top of the other, like I'm doing, I'm just going to wrap that around that stem now. It can often look very messy, and you can begin to feel disheartened with the piece and think, you know what, it doesn't look right and I don't really like it, and it can be tempting to put it down on one side and leave it and start all over again. But this is to me the wonder of oxidizing things, that something that looks quite sort of a little messy and not very defined, I just made sure that all the stones are still, it can look so much better when it's oxidized. Now these prongs I've got at the bottom are quite short, and I am just attacking them now with a large file just to get any, you know, sharp bits. As I said earlier, it could be going in your hair, it could be going through knitting. Either way, you need to make sure that there is nothing that's sort of sharp or catchy. Now I'm going to use it's a steel block and a hammer. You don't need to have a steel block and a hammer. As long as you've got a hammer and a hardish surface, it's just, and then just tap the legs. You notice that I've got the fancy work at the top sort of hanging over the edge so that it isn't getting squashed or flattened. Turn it over and do the same on the back. The hammering does a couple of things. One, it splays out those end wires at the bottom, which I quite like. I like the texture that it gives the wire, especially when it's been oxidized, because you can see these little marks. But it also adds strength. It's sort of like a super work hardening of the piece, which makes these prongs even stronger. Now I'm just going to file that so they're rounded. Anything that's going to go through something needs to be smooth and rounded. You want to push either the knitting to one side or the hair to one side. It needs to sort of flow smoothly over these edges. The last thing you want is a sharp point. Even when you're making a brooch, you don't want a sharp point, you want rounded edges. You want it to slide past the fibres, you certainly don't want it to cut them. So make sure that's really smooth. And there we have a little pin all ready for me to go and attack with oxidization stuff, which I'm going to use platinol, and I'm literally going to pin the platinol on and then rub it back with some wire wool, which is what I've done there. And it's really sweet, it's really pretty. Let me just I've got a piece of knitting here just to show you. It sort of feeds through and it'll clip the scarf together, and you can wear it like that, and it looks gorgeous. Looks really lovely in with the knitting. Now the bigger one that I did, you know, the one with the labradorite on, much longer prongs, and you can see how that would go in and hold your scarf together easier. So if you want longer prongs, more wire. If you're happy with little neat short prongs, absolutely fine. So let's move on to the next version. Now, it might be an idea if you had a break at this point. It's almost like 2 full tutorials in this, but I thought I might as well show you them both. Very, very similar materials, but using beads and wires and things like that. 10" of the 2mm round wire, and I used an extra bit of 1.6 and some of the finer wire as well. Now when that goes on and goes together, you can use any beads you want. You can use smaller beads, larger beads, but I'll show you why. So I've got a bit of a curve in the end of my wire, which I'm just going to ease out here with a pair of pliers and get it straight. With it being quite so thick, I tend to do it with pliers. I can have a go with the cloth, but I tell you what I do find with working with the thicker wire like this, especially when I use a cloth, is I get really dirty. I don't know, let's just pull that through there. It's still not ending up perfectly straight, but as long as it's straightish, you'll be fine. So again, I've got about 10" or so. If you want longer stems, use 12", use 14", you know. It's just that if they're going to go into most people's hair, if you get these stems too long, it's going to poke them in the back of the neck, and you don't want that. So I've got my piece of wire. Let's see if I can straighten that little bit again. There we go. That's it. They're just little touches with the pliers. You're actually using the plier itself to flatten the wire rather than... Look, I'm filthy. I'm a muck tub. Right, sorry, what am I doing? Yes. Let's give it a bit more rub, see if I can stay a bit cleaner. There we go. Yeah, look. That's not going to help me stay cleaner, is it? I'm grubbier. So I'm about the middle point, and I'm going to make a sort of circly shape, a rounded oval. Don't be too particular what I'm going to do with this. I've just got a jam jar, and which is a bit tall to get underneath the camera, sorry about that. And I've just made a curve in it. And I want the stems to be about 2.5 inches long. So if I put my thumb at that point, then I can push those over one another until they cross at about that 2.5 inch point. So I've kind of got a really big fish at the moment. There we go. So then pliers, And I'm just going to take that and bend it back and do the same on the other side, because of course these wires have got to be parallel-ish. So there we go. So I've got what looks like a bit of they're near enough straight, not quite, but I've got a keyhole type shape. Just straighten that end up. There we go. Now, if I was going to do something like this, I'd obviously do the oval much bigger. But for the one we're going to do, that's fine. I'll show you a little bit more of that one later on. So I'm going to get some 0.8 or 20 gauge round wire, and I'm going to use 4 lengths of this. Oh, approximately 12-ish inch lengths. Should be loads. It depends on the size that you've made it. I suppose if you've made that oval an awful lot bigger, if you've used, say, 14 or 16 inches of the thicker gauge wire and you've made that a lot bigger, you'll need more wire. So let me just get all these the same length. That's 3 of them. Let's just get one more. Okay, not a definite that you need 4 of these. You could use more. Probably not less. You might get away with just 3 instead of 4, but I don't think you could get away with 2. And about halfway down, I'm going to just pop that through there and wrap it around. I'm going to need to go around sort of once or twice, using the opening at the bottom to come through rather than try to pass it through the middle. It's easier. And just tighten that down with your pliers. Now where these wires cross, I'm just going to twist like that so the wire twists together. And I've only got sort of 2 or 3 twists. I just want it to go to about the middle-ish. And I'm going to do the same with the next one. So about halfway down, if you put a bend in, it might make it a little easier for you. Slip that over the round wire. Sorry, my hands are in the way, that's better. And then we'll wrap that around, tighten it up with the pliers, and then just twist, straighten that up. It had gone wandering off. And just twist these together. Just 2 or 3 twists. So I've got 2 on one side, and I'm going to do the same with the other 2 on the other side. So bend in the middle, pop it on, wrap it around nice and tight all the way around. Use the opening rather than try to pass it through the middle, it's easier. And then just twist it together. There we go. Nice twist, nice and round. Twist together. That's it. So that's 3 that I've got on. So now I'm going to put the 4th one on, which is the last one, and pop that into place. So I've got a bend over the top of the wire, wrap it around, all the way around, and just give it a twist. I like the twists because they add more texture and depth to the wires. Oh, that one's running away, bring it back. So I have 2 on each side. Get the escapee wire, bring it back together, gather them all in your hand and twist. Now if you can do that with your fingers, brilliant. If you can't, grip it with your pliers and twist. Don't worry about these being perfectly smooth. It's actually better if they're not perfectly smooth, because then you get the lumps and bumps that look like a tree trunk. So let's see, I've got 3 wires there, and I don't want 3, I only want 2 at the most. So 1 set of 2 there. And separate those. I'll have a couple of single ones maybe. We'll do that as a 3, I think. So I'm going to twist those together because they're going to create a branch. And just twist. Normally I grab hold of it and twist the whole thing round, but of course can't do that underneath camera because it just gets in the way. So I had 3 there. Let's take one of them there. The other 2 I'm going to twist together. So the single one I'll wrap around the frame there. There we go. Leave the end of the wire. You can wrap around a couple of times, but we're going to need that end of wire later, so don't cut it off. Now then, wrap these 2 around the framework. Through that. Make sure they're nice and tight. And the same with the next one. Press it down, leave the ends alone. Now the next 2. 3? Yeah, let's have 3. Let's twist those together then. Twist. Yeah. Then let's get some bends in there. Some nice little knotty bits. So let's bend that right down, around, and then back up, and then we'll split that again. So I've got just 1 there. Wrap it around, make it tight. Flatten it down. And twist those 2. And wrap those around. So that's tight against the frame. And then I've just got 2 left. Shall I leave them together? Shall I separate them? Separate them, I think. So wrap that one round there. That's it, nice and firm. Don't cut the ends off. And then do the other one. Nice and tight. So you've got a squiggly little bonsai tree in the middle of an oval with your 2 prongs coming down and all your wires left on, so it looks a little bit like it's got a really mad hairdo. So I want to put another piece of wire on now going round. Now I could just fasten this is 1.6. I could just fasten it on as a straight oval, but I'm not going to. So I've put a bend in it and I'm curving that way, curving that way. Bring it around. Hang on a minute. I've got my mandrel here. I'll just use that just to curve those shoulders a little bit. And you can see it's kind of a heart shape. But like a really weird, flattened, odd skew whiffy heart shape. So it's not going to sit over the top, it's going to sit behind the oval, and the ends are going to come down and they're going to wrap around just where the top of those like stems starts. Can you see? Just they're going to wrap around there and there. Okay, so let me just do that. I'm going to put a slight bend in one of the wires at the end. Now if you want to use 2mm, if you've got 2mm and you want to use that, that's absolutely fine. But the reason I've used 1.6 is because we've got the main framework. The two prongs that are going to come out are going to be really strong. But this is strong enough then to hold the extra bits. So I've got bend round, curl that round, and all the way around with the pliers and press it down. There we go. Make sure there's no scratchy bit. And then the other end, it's gone skew whiffy. Let me just pull it over. There. Other end's going through there. So you see the heart bit, the little dip down if you like, is well at the back of the tree. It's tucked quite well down. But the two side bits of the heart, the edge bits, sticky out bits, I don't know, there's probably a name for them, I don't know what they're called, but they actually protrude beyond the edge of the oval. So you've got different layers. You've got almost a heart, that's nice and smooth, good, almost a heart, but then you've also got like a triple lump at the top, and threes are always more attractive. So we have our tree. Let me just move that because it's trying to go at the front instead of the back, and it needs to be at the back. Right, we have all these wires. Now the reason I decided to use 8mm beads is because they will usually thread quite easily onto a 20 gauge or a 0.8mm round wire. So I'm just going to slide these down. These are Swarovski faux pearls, which I think are really pretty. And I'm going to slide that down, all the way down, go on, and then just tuck that there. So it's coming out beyond that original oval. It's wrapping around the extra heart shape, which is giving this more stability because it's holding it all together. So I'm just going to wrap around again, and then I'm going to go around the bead. Once or twice around the bead, and then back and down and around the framework. My thumb's over the top of the bead, making sure that the wires don't slip off that before they're actually locked into place. So there we go. That's our first bead in. So I'm going to choose another of the singles. Let me just get this wire back to the top. It's tucked to the bottom. Straighten that bit out a bit because the other one was quite tight to get on. If the wire's all bendy, it will be more awkward. So I'll straighten that. Go on. Help if I could find the hole, wouldn't it? There we go. Now slide that all the way. Go on, go on. Down. Now then, where should we pop you? Oh, okay, you want to go up there, do you? Yeah, you're never going over that bend now, are you? Right, we'll stick you there then. And we'll pass that wire through. That's it, nice and tight. Hold it in place. Whee! Other one's running away. Make sure that's tight. Back up to the top. Moving. Because I tried to straighten that wire out, it's become a little bit work hardened, which is why it's not being quite as smooth as it ought to be. And round. Now then, just fasten that. It's not going to go to that wire there. There just isn't enough. But I can fasten it around that one. There we go. That's why it's a good idea to have multiple layers of heavier gauge wire, because then you can pick and choose where you're binding to. Make sure there's no sharpie bits. There we go. go into one of these single ones. Get some more beads. There we go. Honestly, if I can't find these holes easier, I'm going to have to buy some new glasses. Go on you go. Must be old age. They say your eyes go first, don't they? Right, let's just pull that in. Now, I don't really want the bead on the outside of the frame wire. That would look not right. But I would like it inside. Can I get it down there? If I pass the wire back through, and it tucks it into that corner, that looks quite nice. So I wrap that around, whoops, come here. And then wrap around the bead all the way around. Pass that back through the middle and up and round. Come here. Go back through there. Now you notice I've got my thumb on top of the bead. That just makes sure that those wires that we wrap around the bead don't go and slip off and come back over the front. So snip that short and press the end down. There we go. That's 3. So I'm going to keep going and add the rest of the beads. And I've speeded the film up because you've watched me do 3. You know what I'm doing. I'm just wrapping round. Doing exactly the same thing with the others. Although I probably won't use 8 beads. It might be a bit cramped, I don't know. I'm just about to put this one on here, and you can see how there's insufficient wire. I couldn't take that and wrap it around that stem. There's not enough. So if I take it back, wrap it around the main framework. There we go. Now this is one of our pairs of wires. You know, we had a couple of branches that had 2 wires coming off the end. This is one of them, and it isn't long enough, so I'm going to take the other one from its pair and use that to wrap around the bead, and then that will be fastened. It sort of works both ways. It would have been hard to get 8mm beads around the top of there. It might have looked a little bit crowded. So this is a good way of dealing with it anyway, because one of the wires is used to fasten the bead and one of the wires is used to wrap around the bead. So I'll do the same with the other twin wire. Now then, that just needs to pop through to the front. So let me come around with that wire. Go back through to the back, and we'll just wrap it around one of the frames. This is probably a little different to the other trees that you've made, because when you've made other trees, you are staying within a set area. You always stay within the framework of your tree. In this case, we've sort of added extras so that you can come out of that first framework. We're also using much thicker wire. Normally you would use a, you know, sort of 24, 26 gauge or a 0.4mm wire to put your beads on, and the idea would be to put lots and lots of little tiny beads on, so you get this full sort of tree look. This is more stylized. It's more reminiscent of sort of Renee Mackintosh than it is of the tree pendants. And I think we'll do that. Let me just trim that one off. quite a long one is that. And we'll smooth that end down. Because I keep saying, well, you don't want any sharp ends. So let me have a look. Yeah, that's kind of lovely. I like that. It's kind of sweet. Now if I wanted, I could take a load of smaller beads, like these little bronze beads, and I could scatter them in amongst and wire them on with some finer gauge wire. And it would look really nice, but I don't actually think it needs it. Let me just show you on this one. You see you've got smaller ones there and there. I've also got some crystal briolets which stand up. And I've wrapped around with the wires around. You can see those briolets standing up. But it's a much bigger piece than that one. This is much neater, it's smaller. So it's really up to you. It depends what you want. If you're going to go bigger, you'll need more wire. And you spread out further. Now I'm going to put a couple of dimples on these legs. I didn't on the other one, so I'm going to bend out with round nose pliers, bend it back, and maintaining that little bump, straighten it back up again. There we go. What does the little bump do? It stays in things better. It stays in hair better. It stays in knitting better. But it's entirely up to you. If you want a little bump, have a little bump. If you want more than one bump, have loads of bumps. It really is, you know, whatever you feel like. I've just got one bump in either side. So let me just even that bottom up because we're not quite neat. No, that's it. There was no way I was going to cut through that with the tip of the snips. Far too thick a wire to do that with. Attack it with the file. There we go, around the edges. No sharp bits. That's what we're aiming for. There we go. Nice and smooth. Obviously when you're doing this at home you can take your time over this. You could even go as far as using some wet and dry some sandpaper if you like. So I'm going to get my little metal block out and my hammer. Any hammer will do. You know, as long as you're not bashing on something important, it'll be absolutely fine. Flattening the ends out so that I get that sort of slightly splayed look at the end of the prongs. I like that. And of course it work hardens it at the same time. So just round those edges off. There we go. If you were going to put this into a tumbler, you could probably get away with not work hardening it, with just, you know, tumbling it. But it's up to you. So I've got one that's like a mad bush. That was me just whizzing the wires backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and then putting the beads over the top. Another one with a big heart shape. This one is a tree, but it's sort of off to one side. So really, they're endless. And it's up to you. I hope you like doing your scarf or hair forks. And thank you very much for watching. I can't wait to see what you make out of these on the forum. I'm looking forward to it. Happy wrapping.